All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Today's Business Leaders. I'm really excited to have on a new friend that I met through our mutual friend, Charlene, Patricia Michelle Mayo. And we're going to talk about entrepreneurship and see where this conversation goes. We've both been entrepreneurs for quite a long time, worked with entrepreneurs for a long time. And so these are always my favorite conversations because we get to just have a real, honest conversation and share it with all of you. So welcome to the show, Patricia.
Hello, hello. I'm
Yeah.
psyched. I'm psyched because this is absolutely so needed. These real conversations, it's huge.
Yeah, I started the show. I've mentioned this a couple time on episodes, but I started the show 7 or 8 years ago because I live in a pretty small town, rural area, and I had previous to that lived in Chicago for almost 5 years, where the entrepreneurial community is literally right outside your front door, and it's easier to connect with people. And I was like, I'm feeling a little bit lonely, and I want to talk to entrepreneurs more regularly. So that's where the show started. So I'm really glad you're here.
That's brilliant. And it's truly like you just got to use what you have, do what you can. And you got the internet, mic's hot, go.
So, like I always like to find out, when did you first realize you're an entrepreneur?
I was born into it. My dad was an entrepreneur, and my mother is the daughter of queens. So it's one of those things where I there was no other option. There was no way. There was no other way except the way of solving problems. And what was actually harder for me was to realize that I was not an employee.
Yeah. What kind of stuff was your dad up to? And then you said your mom was the daughter of queens. I want to know what that means.
Oh yeah. So my dad, my dad has a bit of a checkered background. When he found out that I would be born, he sold his motorcycle, quit his job as the assistant general manager of a 7-Eleven, and started doing something more similar to what his dad did. So he bought a lawnmower and started a landscaping company, and then grew that. His dad was a carpenter. He literally spent to his last day doing what he loved. Fell off of a roof.
Jeez.
That's the end. So, I come from a long line on that side of people who, and my dad as well, may he rest in peace, he passed when I was 19. And also, at the time he was running his interstate hazmat courier company. So, he was the person that was the last mile between the airport and the hospital for organ transplants and things like that.
Wow.
So, he was really good at carving out niches for himself. And in between the landscaping and being a courier, he actually ended up buying a company for the family to run. We were t-shirt screen printing. So merchandising. Um, and so I got to experience all of that. There was a whole lot of, daddy daughter work days sort of a thing, especially because my mother was disabled. She was born with epilepsy and arthritis and so many other things that really made it so that she was just fairly incapacitated from most of the time. And so I learned everything from my dad. I was knee high from a grasshopper digging in an engine with him because whatever engine it was, it needed to work to get work done.
Yeah.
So I could, by the time my parents moved away when I was 15, I was able to change the oil on just about anything and, make money doing it. Didn't matter. Um, but my mom she was in an interesting situation. Her mother had spent time in the Japanese internment camp because they were deported from Hawaii
Wow.
while she was in utero. So she was technically born on a boat. Can't really get all the paperwork straight, but we were deported from Hawaii because we are descendants of Queen Kapiolani, the mentor to the last queen of Hawaii, Queen Liliuokalani. So she had a hard life.
Yeah.
She had a life of being told, you shall not think for yourself, let alone think any thoughts of your heritage or your roots or your family or anything that brings you solace. And so I'm not surprised that she ended up with chronic illness.
Yeah. That's wild. I've read a lot about the internment camps, and it's another dark chapter in our country's history for sure. It's wild how we can so quickly just dehumanize people and treat them like that. That's I've never talked to anybody that had direct relatives there. That's wild.
And it's especially, sobering to realize is it's so close. This is just
Yeah,
2 generations ago.
yeah,
you know and it's one of the big reasons why I empathize greatly with the natives and so-called aboriginals of the world,
mm,
because I understand that displacement and what it creates. And for me it was the hardest thing was coming back to myself, coming back to my Hawaiian roots, coming back to who I am. And every single time I found a trace of that, I found a sense of home.
yeah,
And it wasn't until I was 30 something in halal that I realized, oh, this is why I am the way I am. What?
yeah,
I was a fish out of water my whole friggin' life.
yeah. That's wild. There's so much. There's so much obviously like pain and trauma and destruction with all conflict like that, and I'm the same way. I feel just super close to the indigenous people and everybody that really in a sense has true rights to the land and where they're at. um and then I also look, which is the hard part for me because I can't reconcile this and see that like so much conflict in human history led to good things too, but it's so hard to separate like how we can be so inhumane and cruel and terrible and also just watch societies evolve like they do. Yeah, that must have been quite the journey, and I don't know what it's like to not know where I came from or not have the roots or not like have that connection, and so that I can only imagine what that was like.
Well, we were told to never practice, to never speak of our heritage. I was under, basically that fear of whatever everything they did to my grandmother would happen to me if ever I practiced my heritage.
Yeah,
And the thing that a lot of people maybe don't understand about Hawaiian is that, like Judaism, like being Jewish, you are by heritage. Like it's not religion.
hmm,
It is,
it's
you
you.
know.
Yeah,
And so, like, the way of being was something that was stripped from me at a young age, and it was very difficult to recover that. But the thing of it is that once I did, and I saw exactly what it was, I was like, oh, it's just like Tutu said, my blood will remember. I did have those pieces, I did have those bits. And it took, a mirror, a clear picture that looked like me for me to go, oh, I see me now.
yeah,
You know? And that I think was a huge turning point for me in, you know, but having more comfort in myself.
yeah,
Until then, I think I heard on a daily basis, just be yourself. And I'm like, what does that mean?
yeah. I think that's really interesting and ties into stuff that I still feel like I'm learning about the entrepreneurial journey is that there's so many skills and so much experience and failure and things we need to go through to really become to achieve some level of mastery as an entrepreneur. And a big piece of that is figuring out those skills and experiences and then coming back to who you really are, because you can't do it exactly like anybody else and think it's going to work. You can't carbon copy somebody else's journey or success or what value they bring to the world, because we're all so such unique individuals, and if we deny who we are and what we believe and how we feel and how we operate at our core, then we run into a lot more obstacles than necessary, and I have for years. But I'm in this season like understanding when things feel right, when it's aligned with who I am, I don't need to worry about what's supposed to work or not supposed to work or any of that stuff, because it's not going to work that way for me. And like that's been a lifelong realization that I keep learning new levels and new layers of.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
In fact, I even argue that the more that you drill into what is uniquely your work, the more potent and powerful you become.
yeah,
And in the more that you're just ruthlessly protecting your lane of genius, the faster you go down that lane. Go figure, right?
yeah,
And the like there was something else that you had said in there that reminded me of another concept. It'll come back to me in a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you obviously from day one, just entrepreneurship is everything you're taught and understand and know. What tell us some of the journey of from like being a kid with your dad and learning hands on. Like I love that he had services, he had products, like he had the whole spectrum of like things we or things we can play in. What was it like to kind of walk your entrepreneurial path and come to where you are today? Because you mentioned that you tried being an employee, which I tried a couple times too. That didn't work out really well for me. But like, what was the other learning or your journey been like to bring you to where you are today, and then obviously bring us up to speed with what how you help and serve now.
So I definitely remember my first childhood hero. I remember sitting every day after school, just going to this place to sit and observe this amazing god of an operation just go. And I would sit, I because my mother being disabled and so forth, she was of the mind that you don't come home until the lights go out, right?
Yeah,
So I had to go find my own place to be, and the place that I found to be was sitting witnessing my childhood hero, the diner server. And it was one of those like, how do they manage to serve so many people and convert them from hangry to patiently waiting to satiated and happy? This was amazing to me. So little resources, so much beauty. And my only problem with doing exactly that same thing is that I couldn't cook. In fact, I was so bad at cooking that I was kicked out of home ec for setting fire to white rice.
wow.
Okay. All right. So I was bad. They sent me to sewing and said, sit, stay, don't go near a stove ever again. Okay. For the love of everything. And so what I do is I'm like, okay, I need to learn how to cook. If I'm going to learn how to do anything like this amazing symphony that I witnessed, I'm going to have to like start small, start with at least understanding how to cook. Right. And I'm like, who could teach me to cook? Who could teach me how to cook? Who can teach McDonald's? McDonald's can teach me how to cook. So I went to McDonald's. And it wasn't the first time. It wasn't the second time. It was the third time I applied for a job at McDonald's. They said, okay, 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 we'll give you a job. And I'll tell you, they recognized how useless I was at that sort of environment immediately by the fact that they assigned me to do birthday parties. I wasn't even capable of handling the counter, okay? It was like, no, 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 no. You're going to go over here and work maybe 2 hours a week and give them ice cream, okay? Don't fuck it up. And
Yeah.
so I managed to not totally mess it up, but see, this was actually where I got my first like big clue and mission that if I was going to create something wonderful where people could actually do their most unique and wonderful work, where people could actually, like, because that's honestly your artistry. Once it's set free, it's the most amazing, beautiful thing. I wanted to do that more. And if I'm going to do that, then the thing that happened next would not stand. I was told by the boss numerous times that my socks were unacceptable.
Wow.
Yeah, they have to be plain, one color, and plain one color socks. So I said, okay, okay, all right. I got some plain one color socks. They were my Einstein socks. So they had Einstein's face doing a silly face, right? So I had like 16 pairs of silly socks. There was no such thing as a regular, like you tell me plain color, plain one color. I'm like, oh, the ones that are all just one color, right? Yeah. So I walk in with the Einstein socks and they're like, no, they can't be like that. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Show me what you mean. They're like, well, here's the catalog. Just order whatever socks. Okay. Here's the company catalog. Right. So what I do is I find the Ronald McDonald socks and I order those.
I don't think that's what they meant.
Now I know that's not what they meant, but at the time it was very distressing. um so and that was the key to me was like this. I'm now on a mission to change the world of work so that people can be free to be themselves, because when you bring your whole person to your work, it shows and it shines, right?
Yeah.
And that was the major turning point for me. My only problem was I still didn't know how to cook.
I don't know
So
if I would consider McDonald's cooking per se. So maybe.
I really drilled down this, I really
Yeah.
pursued this. In 2016, I actually fulfilled my dream and became a diner server of a small diner, lead server even, okay? And
Awesome.
but along the way, you know what it took? It took 5 times working at McDonald's, and it took holding them to their own policy. All right. I got promoted to a shift supervisor without them teaching me to cook. And I'm like, no, you will teach me how to cook. You have to. It's in the book.
Yeah. Wow.
So, I did in fact manage to learn how to do things repeatedly, things that were, very difficult for me because it's kind of a feel thing, right?
Yeah.
And I did eventually learn that. And I realized that the way that McDonald's did that was by breaking it down into itty bitty visuals, tax sheets, and things like that. And so that's what I started really drilling down on in my business was how can I create systems that are self-evident like that?
Yeah.
And that's where I ended up focusing more on my business consulting. And now that's, how I ended up on the board of 3 companies. I just basically help them to, sort out how to make their systems more self-evident and grease the communication chute, I guess it were, you
Yeah.
know. Uh, but yeah, that I think that kind of gets at a lot of what you were after.
Yeah. No, I love that. And sometimes I wish I would have worked at McDonald's for a short time because I just have incredible respect for their systems, their process, like everything. Like, I watched the Founder movie or whatever on Netflix when that came out, and what I was reading as a teenager was the Toyota Way, which is the same methodology, and the E Myth, which is like if you can make a system out of everything, then you can streamline delivery and deliver excellence, and you can put people in the jobs that they love. And that's been my model for over 25 years. Is we can make process and systems and bring in the right people and absolutely give them the freedom and creativity to do what they love, then you can build a business off of that. Because um, it's funny. I love creating that stuff. I love creating processes. That's one of the companies I'm involved with is all about, processes and operations. And I love all that stuff. And I'm still the guy that will build all the processes and then not want to follow them. So I still want to be creative and do new things. But I've learned enough over the years that I do follow my own processes overall. And it's super powerful because it is the repeatable system is what gives the consistent delivery to the customer. And that's where, as I'm sure you've worked with clients and seen in your own businesses, it's when people are in startup mode, they don't have systems, they don't have a process to make the delivery the same, highly consistent, and that's what causes retention problems and loss of profit and all those things. So I love that. That's a great origin story.
And the systems are very subtle. People don't realize, like, you know, they're like, oh, I don't really have a sales process. And I ask them, how do you start talking to a customer? Well, I find someone who's posting videos online all the time. That's the first step in your process.
Yeah, exactly.
It was like, wait, oh, I do have a process. Yeah.
Yeah,
You just need to
it's
write it down.
it's extracting the process, especially for us as founders and entrepreneurs. It's like we just do all this stuff inherently because that seemed like the next logical thing to do. And if it didn't work, we change process. But yeah, you're right. The extracting the processes that are already there so they're replicatable is obviously the magic of it. And there's some things like I'm still in the middle of pulling process out of my own head, and I've been doing this for well over a decade. Sometimes I'm still like, oh, like I do have a process for this, but I got to talk to somebody else about it. I got to walk through, I got to, make videos. I got to like dissect it because it just flows for me. But it's not, I couldn't teach it because I haven't broken it down to those individual tasks or steps or skills that you need to actually have proficiency in it.
Yeah. And that's one of those things that, like, the sweetest magic that you can teach is the thing that you take for granted, but you got to take that pause because
Yeah.
if you, oh, I've done this so many times. The fire hose is like,
Yeah.
oh, I know what you need: 8 minutes of audio notes, and
Yeah.
then
Somehow it doesn't stick. So, yeah. Yeah.
oh no.
I'm I'm curious as you've since you help clients specifically with that stuff of like process and systems, and you said you're on three different boards now, which is awesome. What are what helped you go from like that knowledge and seeing it firsthand to building your own systems to go help people? And then out of that, like what have been some of the most exciting, rewarding projects or businesses, that you've worked in?
Oh, goodness. Okay. So I think that this can all be pretty well encapsulated in one little happy accident. So, the year is 2004. I've just started blogging and things like that. I've been commissioned to blog and things along those lines. And I'm just really good at social media, this whole new media stuff. And I end up getting picked up by this organization called Master New Media, and they start training me into becoming an editor for them, and then leading their editorial team. And I start building some systems for them, and we start getting some really good success. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then I end up trying out something in terms of like, I have a theory about social media development. Let me try this thing out. And I tried it out on this new thing called Twitter. I ended up growing that social media profile, that Twitter profile, from 0 to 1,000 inside 30 days. And this social media company that really needed someone that was good at that saw what I did and said, "Do you want to come work for us?" I said, "Not really. I got a good job here as an editor at Master New Media." They're like, "You're really perfect. How much?" And so I was like, "Okay." So I ended
Yeah.
up working for Now Sourcing, who at the time was the number one social media marketing agency in the world. And I just started delivering for their Twitter clients, just developing their profiles and whatnot. And I noticed a problem. The owner was getting 300 messages a day from everybody. I was like, I can do something about this. Let me make a wiki. He's like, okay. So I made a wiki. In 2 weeks, he went from 300 messages from every single person to six.
Yeah.
You know what that does for the rest of your business? He went from being able to find and close 5 clients a week to find and close 25 clients a week. We went from being able to work with 5 clients weekly with 40-hour work weeks to serving those 25 clients with 20-hour work weeks.
Man.
That was when I realized, oh shit, I should do this more.
Yeah. No kidding. Massive efficiency and growth.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, because the thing of it is that until then, I'd just been swimming in my own ponds.
Yeah.
I'd just been doing sort of like, I'm really good at media, I'm really good at communications, I'm just going to do the communications. And then I got recruited into a spot where, yeah, I was still doing the communications, and then I built one of my systems in their world.
Yeah.
And they went, huh? Blew the whole world open. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's when I started realizing that the way that I think, the way that I build systems, the way that I consider how everything works together is not the way that anybody teaches.
Hmm.
I started actually really seriously auditing business classes in colleges just to really figure out, like, where is your perspective different from mine? How are you getting these ideas but not these? I
Yeah.
even, in fact, started really, I found several retired Boston Consulting Group consultants and interviewed them. I was like, what is going on in your world, in your perspective, that you manage to perpetuate problems better than you solve them?
What did they tell you?
Well, one of my sales coaches told me you can't make a business actually solving problems, so I fired him. Um,
Yeah. Business 101. Jeez.
mhm. So then, yeah, that was, you were asking, yeah, the overall journey and how I got to where I am. So the thing that ultimately kind of broke it open for me was that I was trying to only charge an upfront fee for everything that I was doing. And when I saw that result from now sourcing, I was like, there's no way. There's no way I can just charge an upfront fee. And maybe you know this name, Guy Kawasaki.
Hmm.
So anyone here not familiar, Guy Kawasaki was an evangelist for Apple back at the turn of the century. Goodness, I feel old now. Um, and he also founded alltop.com, which had a lot of websites ranked according to their viewership and so forth in every category. And one of the things that he was really big about, he did a lot of business development. And full disclosure, I did edit one of his books, which is a big part of the reason why I was so ingrained in his philosophies.
Yeah.
I finally understood his business model. That's what did it for me. I was in a serious funk. I was just like, what the heck do I need to do in order to actually make this profitable? And then I saw his business model and it made sense. And it was equity plus payment, you
Yeah.
know. And it was, oh, I'm missing the equity piece. So I added that to what I was doing.
Yeah.
And that actually stabilized things for me
Mm.
greatly once I saw the inside of that business model. And 99% of what I found in business is just you got to see the example before you can follow it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. And it reminds me, it's a different arena and different example, but my wife and I have been watching American Ninja Warrior for years, which is I think probably some people are familiar with it, but it's basically like an obstacle course, and they've changed and evolved it over the years. It used to be adults, and now it's like you can be 15 years old and run, which makes it really hard for people my age that do run it, and the whole range in between. But every couple of years, there's what they call this warped wall, which is like this big radius like wall that people run up. And when they started, I believe the warped wall was 17 feet, if I remember right. And it was like crazy hard to get up. And then people figured out how to get up it. Then they moved it to 18 feet, and that took a while. And then just this last season, it's 18 and a half feet. And we've watched like 3 or 4 episodes, a good chunk of the show, and nobody was getting up. And my wife, Rachel, said something that very true, and in a great business lesson, just like you're saying. She's like, once somebody gets up there, more people will get up. And that's exactly what happened. It took a bunch, and like everybody was screwing up, failing, couldn't figure out how to get up there. And then one, 16, 17-year-old kid got up there. And then the next person that ran got up there. And you're so right. Like we have to see, believe. And it's the same thing as, the old adage of the 4 minute mile. Like until the 4 minute mile was broken, nobody thought that was possible. There was actually doctors that said you would die doing that. And you're so right. It's like, I think, I was just writing an email to my online family, my newsletter list, earlier, and just reminding myself and everybody, like, you've got to ask for help, because then you can see the other way or see the process. And like, if we don't, I think entrepreneurs are inherently very tactile learners in one sense or another. Like if we see it, if we touch it, if we can experience it, then we can truly understand it, because all the books and all the theory and all the trainings you watch can contribute and help, but until you're like with somebody doing it, or you're seeing it firsthand, or they come into your business and show you how to do it, it's really hard to conceptualize and achieve that stuff. So that's awesome. And yeah, we were talking before we jumped on here, like I had played with the equity only ways into business, and that ends up being a huge challenge, because people that offer you equity up front and no money, generally speaking, don't have a viable business yet. But to put those together is absolutely the secret. And that's really cool that you learned it from somebody that is definitely one of the big entrepreneurial names. He's done a lot, so that's awesome.
It's fortunate, and it's one of those things where for a minute I was being very strategic in what I was doing in my offers. I was actually a ghostwriter for a minute. I did
Yeah.
ghostwriting specifically so that I could get myself next to these great minds, you know.
Yeah.
And so like that, by way led unto way, I ended up in editing, and way led unto way, and that is one of those, like, in any way that you can just kind of absorb greatness next to you, do
Yeah.
it, give it a shot, and but just do it for your own reasons. There was a copywriter in my messages, asking me, like, should I go copywriting or should I go ghostwriting? I'm not sure. And I was like, I can't answer that for you.
Yeah.
I can't answer that for you. What I can say is that whatever you do for your own reasons, they can't take your successes from you.
Yeah, no
You know,
kidding.
so if you're getting into ghostwriting because you think it's going to lead to something else, you better be very intentional about where it's going. Because let me tell you, a portfolio of projects you can't talk about by people you can't name, it does not help you. No.
Doesn't really. Yeah, yeah.
um,
We've
it's
done
the
ghost
you know,
in our age. So yeah, I know exactly how that goes. Yeah,
so like there's a particular strategy to that. If you're not doing it for your reasons, you're probably not aware of the fact that they're doing getting you to do it for their reasons.
yeah. You're achieving their goal, and if you don't have your own real reason inside of it, it's not going to be very helpful.
My word. So yeah, Uno
Yeah.
reverse. What made you go down this journey?
Um, yeah, it's a great question. Uh, Definitely like so early on, we grew up super poor, but we lived in one of the wealthiest zip codes in the entire country. Because my parents took on a caretaking agreement with our landlord to basically work Saturdays and Sundays every week to have free rent. Um, and so my landlord had the Bushes and the Clintons, the presidents over for dinner, and there was Rolls Royces and all the other things in the driveway. And so that combined with my grandfather, who was always entrepreneurial from a really young age, who he was, my biggest father figure and mentor as a child. I just realized like I don't want to be poor. This sucks. I always tell people like money can't buy happiness, but being poor doesn't make you happy either. Um, and so just early on, I knew if I wanted anything in life, I was going to have to make the money. And so I did everything from trapping animals and selling skins, selling their fur to any manual labor I could. I charged people. I used to draw a lot more and be a decent artist compared to today because I don't draw as much as I used to. I had people hire me to write illustrations for stuff they were teaching or doing. Um, then I started building and selling websites in my mid-teens. Started a construction company and ran that for a few years and learned a lot of great lessons and lost that in the housing market crash. And then that led me full time into doing tech and marketing and all the things I still do a ton of today with my team. So I think it's just the realization that I don't want to live like this. I had clear, stark examples of each side of it. Like my landlord, I ended up looking it up years later. I think in the early 90s, his company was worth like somewhere between 30 and 40 million. Um, and so having that kind of influence, and he was the poorest guy in the neighborhood. Like if we were going to not poor, but you know what I mean? Like, um, one of the neighbors there that I ended up working for in my construction company founded a company called Leaseway Trucking and was one of the first billionaires in logistics and trucking. Um, so yeah, I just had these stark contrasts of like, well, this is one path and way, and I was able to somehow as a kid pretty objectively see what led there, and then see my landlord, his neighbors, my grandfather, and all my grandfather's friends who had what they wanted. My grandpa had a house in Florida and boats and bought whatever he wanted. It felt like to me, it wasn't quite like that, but as a kid, I felt like that, and would go on vacation and do all the things he wanted and provided for his family. And so it was really a stark realization that like here's behavior and action and choices that lead this way. Here's behavior and action and choices that lead a different way. And there was no question. In some ways, I would say same as you, like born an entrepreneur because my grandfather stepped in really early, and he was absolutely my biggest mentor and still one of my greatest heroes today.
You were definitely born into it. Your grandfather was already in it, and your dad was trying. He just didn't quite adopt the whole mindset.
No,
Yeah,
he didn't get it.
yeah,
So,
yeah. And
and
and that sometimes happens, especially with like the elder kids. The elder kids of the entrepreneur. I was
yeah,
the youngest of three, but I was my dad's only. So
mm,
like and given my mom's situation, I had no choice.
yep, exactly. Yeah, and I always tell people too, like there's no better path to work for somebody else and help them build their company or build your own companies. But what's most important is the best path for you and knowing what's good for you. Because I wouldn't have anything I have if I didn't have an amazing team and amazing leaders and contributors. So they're just different paths. And I'm curious too, because since we both love systems, what are some of the core principles that you would say you live by, apply, like as you're helping people find those systems that are universal across whatever type of company or project or system you're looking at? Like, what are the early things, or what are the principles that you're watching for to identify or install when you're working with the people that you work with?
So a lot of the things that I'm looking for are going to be their their subtle patterns, right? So
Hmm.
it's the things like they're going to say that they hate this thing and they love this thing. I'm noting that down. This thing is really easy for them at this time frame. I'm writing that down. It is really about like listening to those subtle patterns, picking
Hmm.
up on those things. That's the number one thing, is those subtle patterns. What In order to be your natural greatness, you're already doing it.
Yeah.
We just need to protect that lane so that you're going down it faster, you know.
Yeah.
And that is basically kind of the main hallmark of it, is that you have a natural excellence, you have a unique work that is unique to you. Drill down to that unique work that is unique to you, you know. And it is born from what you love to do and what you love to give,
Yeah.
and those sorts of things. It's founded in quote unquote preference, but it's the most powerful friggin' thing you can ever install in your business in terms of prioritizing it. Because number one, if you know your very simple 3 to 5 priorities tops, then you win more. And when you win more, you feel better. When you notice that you win more, you actually internalize it. And that's the third piece, right? Is I'm requiring you to celebrate every single little victory. Did you get up and get some more water in your cup?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Like, like right on down to that. Celebrate every single friggin' little victory, even if it's all only in your head. I'll be your first cheerleader if you need one, but I might be annoying.
Yeah.
Because I'll notice
That's all.
everything. I'll
Yeah,
notice
there's
everything.
yep. Yeah, I love that. You're right. I always tell people there's always patterns and everything. And if you watch, you can find out exactly what's going on and high likelihood of what's going to happen. And then like, I love that because you're right. If we can be doing what we love and gaining momentum there, and then everything else can fall in place. And if we're working on what we're truly great at, then there's revenue, there's momentum, there's everything working. So you can outsource, you can delegate, you can do all the other things that need to happen inside the business, even if you don't love, that part of it anymore, which is awesome.
And I think that the most difficult part for people to get to is that whole like, what is my unique work? And
Yeah.
that's where I tend to spend a lot of the initial coaching sessions. I'll sit down for 3 hours with someone and like
Yeah.
just actually interview that fully out of them, because it where a lot of people tend to get stuck is they think that everything that they love is just part of life, and then there's this other thing called monetizing it, you know
Yeah.
and they're like way over separate land. I'm like, no, 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 everything. Okay, we want a list of everything you love to do. I
Yeah.
don't care if it's you love staring at flowers grow. Write it down. you know
Yeah.
and that's one of the hard parts for people to kind of internalize, especially once you've been a professional for your whole career, or you've been successful for your whole career. You think it's all about, well, especially with the love to give list, that gets to be really hard, because love to give is not necessarily about, oh, I love to give quilts, or I love to give flowers, or no. It's, what do you love to create in another human being? What is
Yeah.
the intangible thing that you're creating in another person, right? And so for me, like, my number one love to give is awe. I love to create that sense of wow, right?
Yeah.
And I think I succeeded. And so I get to check off that list all the time. That's me fueling me. I created wow today. That's all I got to do on my to do. What's on yours, right? And
Yeah.
you think that it has to be something directly monetizable as being your most unique work, but it's not. It's actually the root of everything that you do.
That's really powerful. You're right. Because yeah, it's easy to get stuck in the busy stuff we have to do, or the things that are currently paying us, or all those things. But you can burn out on that if you're right. If you don't love to create, because I always tell people in entrepreneurship and sales, because they're very very tied together for me. It's creative work, and if you can stay in the creative and create the space for the creative, then you can fuel and everything and move forward. Whereas if you get stuck in something, no matter how well it's working or how quote unquote successful it is, you can burn out on that really quickly. And as entrepreneurs, I know too, if we get in that cycle, we're actually not happy. It's easy to self sabotage and burn something down just because we're not listening to what we're really feeling and who we truly are.
Yeah. And it's a quick highway straight out to devastation. It's a race to the bottom, you
Yeah,
know? Especially if you're sitting here trying to like compete on price or compete on, being the best. Like that's you're just gonna run yourself into a wall. What I tend to find is far more successful is make yourself into a category of one.
yeah,
Unforgettable, right? You own the race course just by the fact that you're a beacon that nobody can deny, you know,
yeah,
and you just keep marching on and glowing up, you know. It's one of those things where the number one in the industry is not competing to try to keep ahead of number two. Number one
yeah,
is entirely focused on what they're doing. I don't care what number two, number three, number four. No, you keep doing you. I'm the one that makes the pace in this industry.
yeah. You're so right. So this has been amazing. I'm so glad we get to have this conversation, Patricia. I have a couple things left for you. One, I love what you shared about the work you do with people and helping them truly find their passion and their genius and what they're really brilliant at. And so I know that's a deep process that I definitely encourage everybody to connect with you and check you out and learn about that. If you could give somebody a starting point or exercise, encapsulate some of that to help them understand what that looks like what would you encourage people to go through as like a self-guided exercise to get closer to who they are and their real genius?
Absolutely. I can do this in 1 minute flat. So you're going to
Awesome.
have a sheet of paper. You're going to divide it into two columns. The left side, you're going to write love to do. The right side, you're going to write love to give. Love to do is just things you love to do. All I want is verbs: swimming, writing, teaching, talking, any ing, all those ings. And you brainstorm at least 10. All right. Once you get past 10 and it starts getting hard, that's when you're getting the good stuff. Give me three more, then you're good. Okay. Now, next column. We're going to do the love to give. Love to give is everything that you love to create in another human being. It's the intangibles, it's the smiles, it's the laughters, it's the hope, it's the conviction, it's the passion, it's the reignition. It is what you love creating in another person, whether it's soulless or anything else. Write it down, at least 10. Once it gets hard, give me three more. We got it, right? Okay, then we're going to take these two lists and we're going to look at these and we're going to say, you know what? If there was only this one thing in my life and everything was good, if I had only this one thing in my life and everything else was good, on the love to do, what's that one thing? Write a number one next to that. Then you go to the love to give and you do the same thing. You write a number one next to that. Okay. These two things make a sentence. So I
Yeah.
love expressing awe. So any way where I create an awesome expression, I've checked a to-do off my list. All right. So expressing
Yeah.
awe is one of those things that's like really high on my list. And then you can get two more. You can take two more. What's the number two? If I had just this and my number one, life is great, but a number two, do the same thing for the love to give. And you got another sentence, you got a third priority. Don't go further than five. All right. But number your top three at a minimum. And just focus on doing those every single day. And every single day that you do those, fucking celebrate it. I do not apologize for the language. Do it. Okay. And that,
Yeah.
give yourself 30 days doing that. You will not recognize yourself anymore.
That is awesome. I'm going to do that. And I encourage everybody to do that because, as we've talked about, like when you really find what you love to do and what you love to give, then it fuels everything else. Like I believe we are born on the planet to do work. And the important part of the journey is to figure out the journey that to the work we love doing and that we love giving to others. And just that's true creation. And that's when everything is attracted to us. And I love what you've shared and just have loved learning more about your journey as we've been connected on Facebook. And so I definitely encourage everybody to check Patricia out and reach out to her if you need any support in your systems and figuring out, what you truly love to do and give. You can connect with her at facebook.com/awesomebrains. And we'll include that in the show below, but in the notes below. But thanks so much for being on, Patricia. This has been such a blast, and I look forward to staying in touch and bring you back in the future at some point. All right.
Aloha. Keep kicking butt. Friggin' awesome.